What is happening, guys? Welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast, and we're on a deadline. You're probably on a Dynasty trade deadline in your league. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. But tonight, I have made a trade. I've traded in my co-host, at least temporarily. Jerry is out. I'll get into that in a minute, but let me introduce my co-host for the evening. Now, if you're following on our channel, the Dynasty WarZone on YouTube, or our podcast on Saturdays, you hear a podcast called the Dynasty Front Office. It usually streams live on Thursday evenings during the Thursday night football game. I am not even going to attempt to describe this podcast because I've got one of the co-hosts of the show. He is Philadelphia Eagles' #1 fan and co-host of the Dynasty Front Office, Mr. Jesse Scheenman. Jesse, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Papa Memphis, thank you so much for the gracious intro. I really appreciate it. So we are the Dynasty Front Office. Like Memphis said, if you subscribe to the Dynasty WarZone, you get us in your feed as well. We go live on Thursday nights, usually around 10 o'clock Eastern. And then we come out on Saturdays, wherever you get your podcasts.
Funny story about that, though. You come out on Saturdays when you remind me to launch the show. So Thursday nights, football's going on. I've got coaching on Thursday night. So and then I always edit the show, the Dynasty Front Office. You can find it again. This is why you subscribe to the Player Profiler channel and the Dynasty WarZone channel. You never miss a thing. And I sometimes I forget to hit the go live button. Sometimes I forget to toggle from AM to PM. There are so many things, but on Saturdays, and it's going to be this way throughout the rest of the regular season, barring any unforeseen circumstances, you'll get an episode of the Dynasty Front Office. Now, with that being said, this is a bit of a rebranding for you guys. You guys used to be the Dynasty War Games, which is a play on the old movie, and it goes in line with the Dynasty WarZone theme. But you guys have changed this to more to a front office approach, and you tend to use some games. Will you share with the audience the premise of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we call ourselves the front office because we go into, we're mainly trade value. So we're a Dynasty trade value show. That's what we do. But we do it in a fun way. And we like to introduce games. Last week we played, if you're on a deserted island, what 3 fourth tier or, high-end QB2s would you bring with you? And then we went into a few other things, but that was the base of the show. And we play the game to introduce the players. And then we talk about the player value, what we'd give, what we wouldn't give, what position you'd have to be in to trade for that player, that kind of thing. And we don't just say, okay, he's worth a second. We dig really far into it. We try to do crossover into other positions and, where is your team? Are you a contender? Are you a rebuilder? We approach it from every angle. And like I said, we have fun. We play games. We played the Family Feud. And then in the off season, we're going to, we have the last few off seasons, go very deep into rookie content. We watch a lot of film. We play a lot of games still, but we'll be a huge resource on your rookie drafts. And then we go into a lot of strategy as well. So it's everything you need to run your dynasty team. Hence the name of the front office.
It's not your average run of the mill dynasty. I shouldn't say it's not a start sit podcast. If you want to reach out to the guys, you can jump on their live stream. Again, they live stream on Thursdays. Subscribe to the Dynasty WarZone on YouTube, turn notifications on, and in the live chat, you can ask them questions. I can't promise you they're going to answer every one. They're busy guys. They're trying to get through a show. But if you're looking for help with a trade from some really talented gamers who are passionate about Dynasty, check these guys out. And we'll wrap up the shameless promotions with me reminding you to subscribe to the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Now, we are just a shade like 2,000-ish from 30,000. What a milestone that would be for Matt and Theo and Billy and Jason and all of the guys who are responsible, Tyler, everybody who's responsible for YouTube. And what a good way to go into the off season. So it's what, going into week 12? Is that right? Week 12, Jesse? Yeah. So we're going into week 12. Can we in like 6 weeks get this channel to 30,000? I think we can, even if you're an audio only subscriber. Thank you, first of all. But hit pause unless you're driving your car. Hit pause and go to YouTube. The whole thing will take you 45 seconds. But think about the content we deliver. Think about the content Matt and all those guys I just mentioned delivered. It goes a long way. It would be really good as we start cranking up Dynasty season, because our season's getting ready to ramp up. It would be really, really cool to go into January. I guess really rookie content will start hitting in like the 1st of February, like right as the Super Bowl's getting ready to run, and we'll be up and running. So that is my shameless promotion. I will throw in some more later in the podcast. That's just how it works, guys. But I will say we need to hear a word about Dynasty Deluxe.
This episode is brought to you by Player Profiler, the Dynasty Deluxe package. The rankings are the best in the industry. It includes strategy mode where you can say, hey, change the rankings to be win now. Oh, change the rankings to be productive struggle. There's also a draft planner to help to strategize where you should take players, because the draft planner also includes ADP. There's a trade finder where we look up on My Fantasy League and we see trades that are done, including a particular player. Then there's a trade analyzer where you can plug in draft picks, players, and we assign a lifetime value to draft picks out 5 years. The best thing about our trade analyzer, it can't be gamed with volume. And there's mock draft data to see right now what's the market for player X versus player Y, including in the fall when very few mock drafts are happening. And our Dynasty guide, the Dynasty Dominator, would cost you $10 on Amazon, but you get it for free with Dynasty Deluxe, and you get our rookie guide for free, a $25 value. So you get all of that for $45. I mean, it's a great deal.
Matt does such a great job with those commercials. Check out Dynasty Deluxe. And Jesse, I will ask you, are you ready to check out Good People with Bad?
One of my favorite segments of the
show. This one I have two. And they're not really necessarily bad tweets. I don't agree with both of them. I really just want to start a debate. Okay. And I'm going to read both, and then we can react to them. And, then we'll get into some trade theory and some trade targets we're looking at, and we're going to give you the best hour of your Dynasty podcast day. All right, first one, Dynasty Day Traders, at Dino Day Traders. It's time for your annual reminder that Dynasty trade deadlines are stupid. Didn't leave much interpretation for how they feel. Let the contenders do what they think is needed for a championship. Let the rebuilders have some leverage to, rebuild. Win-win. It's how Dynasty is supposed to work. And that goes right along in lines with the things that we're going to talk about tonight. And then the second one, everybody's eligible to make this segment. This guy was the very first guest almost 8 years ago that Jerry and I had on the podcast. It's Addison Hayes, at Amaze Hayes _. Why the underscore? Don't know. Ask him when you add him. And he says, no matter what side of the Dynasty trade deadline debate you fall on, I hope that we can all agree that deadlines should not be in weeks 10 through 12. That's just horrible. Fix your league. So Jesse, I will start with the Day Traders tweet. What is your thought? What is your personal thought about trade deadlines and their impact on Dynasty leagues? And if you want to mix in Addison's take of it shouldn't be weeks 10 through 12, the floor is yours.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I am pretty much I will play under your rules if I join your league kind of player. So I don't like to make waves about the rules because I agreed to them at the start. That being said, I don't like trade deadlines. I like fun, right? So if it's a well-commissioned league, I don't see a need for it. I kind of a little hot take-ish. Maybe a little bit, but I don't mind tanking. I like tanking. As you mentioned, I'm a huge Philly fan. I love the process. I thought the process was working in Philly until they fired Sam Hinkie and yada, yada, all the Colangelos and the burner accounts and all that kind of crap. I like the process. So if somebody wants to run a process on their team, let them. And there's no better time to make trades than when teams are in the playoffs, and it adds balance to a league, right? So you have this top team that's in the semis, and I'll give you a perfect example. Last year in the Dynasty playoffs, I don't remember if it was the semis or the finals. It was on Christmas Day, I believe. Josh Jacobs was questionable, and then boom, he's out. They gave us like the hints that he was going to play, and then boom, he's out. What are you supposed to do, right? So in the leagues that I have a lot of Josh Jacobs. I've always been a Josh Jacobs fan. So now I have to scramble. In the leagues that there's no deadline, I could trade for Zamir White. I think Deontay Johnson was playing that same night. There were options, right? The last thing I want to do is see a playoff team without a full roster in a playoff game, right? It's just not competitive. So, like I said, for well-commissioned leagues, I don't see a problem with it. As long as there's no collusion, let her rip.
I agree for the most part, but the only way first of all, you said, and I like that. That tells you the kind of good person that Jesse is. Jesse's like, hey, I play in your league. I'm going to do whatever the rules are of your league. Not me. I'm going to say, fuck that. There's got to be law and order. First, I will say I'm fine with not having a trade deadline if you have a commissioner with the spine and the huevos to make sure you get every dollar for every year of every first-round pick traded in that league.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Period, point blank, end of discussion.
Absolutely. I'm all for that, yes.
There is a league. It's a content creators league. And 3 years ago, maybe 4, I was playing in the championship, minor humble brag. And I was playing in the championship against a guy, and he went all in and literally gutted every future first, like that year's, the next 2 seasons, all of his young talent. And you know what? Kudos, he got the job done. But what do you think happened to that team the next year? Around March, hey guys, I got a lot of leagues, and I've really got to pare some back, and I love all you guys, but I just and then this team as a collective group, because we didn't collect the money from this particular GM as he was burning the ships on his way to a ship. We are literally essentially, and I think this will be the last year, we're literally paying another GM to run this because he's not coming out of pocket. So that impacts the winners. So if you can't get the money and maintain the league, because I'm telling you, no trade deadline will create more orphans than anything else. And I will jump to Addison's tweet. I always give credit for this because we created this together. It was me and JD. JD used to do content with the GOAT District. For those of you that have heard Dan Williamson here on Player Profiler, also used to do a show called the GOAT District. And JD and I, in a ton of leagues together, our rule was that at kickoff, trade deadline did not start until kickoff of the week of the playoffs. So now it used to be 14, 15, 16. Now it's 15, 16, 17. They've added the 18th week. Well, on Thursday Night Football of week 15, at 8 p.m. sharp, the trade deadline kicks in. But there's a twist. Non-playoff teams can continue to trade with other non-playoff teams. We changed the structure to where all trades require a commissioner's approval. We validate whether or not both players are in the playoffs, not in the playoffs. And the minute that you get eliminated, you can start trading. So it gives you the deadline, but what it does is because this is what the GM that I referred to earlier, this is what he did. He just kept every week, he just kept incrementally burning more and more and more and more. And again, it got the job done, but he left a shell of a team that had nothing left at the end of it. Those have always been my takes on deadlines. Jesse, anything to go along with what I added?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with what you say. You have to get the money for future. That way that if that team gets orphaned, at least it's free for the next person. And if you give me a free orphan that I can just play around with for the next 2-3 years and try to rebuild. That's kind of fun. I've done that with some teams and ended up winning. So,
and you can also, I mean, the other way you can do it, you can also take that and you can also create a dispersal.
yeah,
But you're literally incentivizing that new GM to come in and take over an orphan. That's especially this one here. It was as bad as I have ever seen, Jesse. Like I said, I think this was 2022, and let's just say it was. This guy gave up his 2022 first, his 23 first, and his 24 first. This team is just now getting ready to start having first round picks.
yeah.
And just create so much work for good commissioners to do all these things. Whether you're pro or against a trade deadline, make sure that whatever decision you and your league make, unless you're like Jesse and he goes with a monarchy to where the king rules and that's the rule. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Democratic man. I'm the power of the people. Whatever you and your league mates agree to. But no trade deadline, protect the money. Trade deadline, don't have it too early, and de-incentivize trades. Is that a fair statement, Jesse?
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine. I would play into that. As long as if it's before the playoffs start, what's the point of that? I don't like that at all.
Yeah. I mean, like literally, because think about the real NFL. They have a trade deadline. Why? Competitive balance. So right up until the playoffs. But whoever, and look, I know week 15, 16 injuries are going to happen and they're going to suck. And you're going to have been rocking with a guy all season. And you know what? That's how fantasy football works. Boo-hoo. Move on with it. We're going to move on with this show. But, after a huge UFC pay-per-view this past weekend, I don't think it would be right to end this segment without a traditional swing by from Dana White.
How fucking stupid you have to be to even think something like that, let alone say it publicly and act like you're fucking serious.
Thank you, Dana. As always, good people, bad tweets. That one was brought to you by the Dynasty Deluxe. Now, Jesse, when I invited you to come on and I told you we were going to talk about dynasty trades, you whipped up a couple of theories, some things that you operate by as a talented dynasty gamer in your own right. And you wanted to share some of these with the audience before we get into some potential candidates that you're looking into. So yeah. I'm going to throw the floor back to you. It's yours. Give us something that's moved you.
Yeah, absolutely. Memphis, and this is our time of the year. So this is when we really thrive. Trades are really heating up. I probably made 3, maybe 4 fantasy dynasty trades just today. So they're really heating up. I love it. It's really a lot of fun, but you need some guidance. You need to know exactly what to do and who to go after. So yeah, like you said, I have a couple strategies. These are things that we talk about on our show all the time. Kind of go-tos for us. All right. So number one, this is kind of like the Cadillac of these strategies. So I don't suggest doing this unless you are a top 4 team, and you need to be a solidly top 4 team within, with record and points, unless you had a lot of injuries and you have a lot of players coming back from injury and you're really confident in your team. Maybe you want to go out and spend your contender 2025 first on one of these players. Okay. I'm going to bounce them off of you and I want to hear what you think. Right. But like I said, this is the idea, is that you're spending your 25 first on a player that you're going to insert into your lineup and hopefully put you over the top, right? These are proven veterans, guys that I think, obviously it's who's available in your league, but these are the type of players, right? So Alvin Kamara, Debo, Kittle. The last one is a little borderline in Cooper Kupp. So I've seen him go for more like a high first plus, right? Don't know if he's really worth a late first, but as you say all the time, things happen in different leagues. Every market is its own. You may actually be able to get, as a rebuilder, get a first for Kupp. But what do you think about Kamara, Debo, Kittle as a first round investment for somebody? Now, this is, like I said, a top 4 team, and you're kind of pushing your chips in at this point.
Well, this is the beauty of having my non-traditional co-host, Jerry. And I'm not saying we're going to replace Jerry, but I'm not going to say we're not going to replace Jerry. Right now, we're just supporting Jerry as he's battling through real life stuff. And I'm joking. Jerry, that's my guy. Jerry's never going anywhere. But I will actually, because you brought up a team with a guy that I wanted to talk about. So we'll just kind of like intertwine this thing for the 16 minutes we have. I wouldn't give you a popcorn fart for Deebo Samuel.
Wow.
I'm telling you, he's as 2022 is never coming back again. I mean, even with Brandon Ayuk gone, even with George Kittle gone, I would rather have Juwan Jennings. And if I were I would rather have Juwan Jennings if I'm contending.
You mean at cost or
At
just
cost?
straight
Yeah,
up?
just straight up. I think Juwan Jennings is going to have more fantasy points the rest of the way. And if
Okay.
that's what I'm buying as a contender, I'd rather buy more fantasy points for less equity than I would Deebo, because Deebo carries some name value. And I will tell you, another 49er that I am 100% interested in. This is for the non-contender, or maybe the team that has just decided, hey, I'm too many injuries, I'm going to be back next year. I'm going to go get Ricky Pearsall.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to be great, but this offense is going to produce fantasy points. I like where you're at. I think if you could get Kittle for a first, especially in a tight end premium league, God, if he could stop getting hurt for no damn reason, just random. He goes out and
Definitely
hangs,
not toughness.
dude. He goes out and hangs a beating on somebody from a PPR standpoint, and then all of a sudden he tweaks a hamstring in practice. Well, we're not going to play.
Definitely not toughness though.
Brutal. He is brutal. I will say I don't think that you should have to. They may try to press you for a first on Alvin Kamara and Cooper Kupp. I think you need to have a very honest conversation with that other GM. Look, I'm going to give you a second, and if I have to, I'm going to give you another second in 2026. Because here's the thing. What's the thing that's been popular on the internet for like the last year, 18 months? Fuck around and find out.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck around for the next 4 weeks and hold on to Cooper Kupp and let your trade deadline pass if you got one. And you're going to find out not only are you not getting a second in January, you're going to be lucky to get a third in January. Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. All right? Get as much as you can. Don't get greedy, because this is veteran selling season. So I think 2 seconds for a Kamara or a Kupp is more than fair.
Okay. So, and if we're getting in the 2 second territory, I'll also throw in James Conner.
Yeah, I mean, if you saw the thumbnail from my homie Brittany, weekly shout out to Brittany. There'll always be a Brittany shout out. She is the best. You'll notice Joe Mixon is on the
Rolls Royce here.
He is, because of the game that he had recently. You know, Monday night against the Cowboys, standalone game, 3 touchdowns, just a great game. Yeah, but what do Alvin Kamara and James Conner and Joe Mixon all have in common?
They're 30.
They're all class of 2017 running backs. And I say this, I've said this a lot this summer, this season during the point scoring portion. They can't keep getting away with this, right? They can't continue to be 28, 29, 30-year-old running backs and performing this way. Historically, that is not what's supposed to happen at the running back position. But for these guys, it has. And I will say I'll just take those 3 guys in order. I think Alvin Kamara is much more likely to not only get you points the rest of this season, he should be able to contribute to your roster next year. I feel very much the same way about Joe Mixon, probably more so. Not only did they trade for him, but they extended him, just like New Orleans redid the cap number on Alvin Kamara. I'm not so sure on James Conner. I know they like him. He's a tough. If George Kittle isn't tough, James Conner is tougher than a $2 steak. That guy, you know, and forget that he came back from cancer. This guy plays through everything. James Conner's outside of cancer, not much has stopped him. And that's what you want if you're looking to add lower rent guys. So to answer your question, yeah, people may ask for a first on Kupp and Kamara. I'm going to negotiate smartly there. In a tight end premium league, I'm more than happy to pay the first for George Kittle because, I mean, he's George Kittle. I mean, if he, let me ask you a question. What are the average that he has a monster game? Just one in weeks 15, 16, or 17?
90%, 95%.
It's 95% that one out of those 3 weeks, he's going to win you the week.
Yeah.
That makes George Kittle worth it in and of itself. Plus, he's also only like 30, 31 for a tight end. It's not a running back. It's not even a wide receiver. These guys can play till 33, 34. So I don't mind paying the first on anybody if I think I can get the rest of this year and next year out of it. And I'm going to be contending next year as well. Like, I've got a good team. I'm just trying to push this thing over the hill. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, this is not for teams 5 through 7. You know, if you are struggling to make the playoffs and crossing your fingers and hoping it goes, this is not the trade for you. All right. The trade for you is most likely this next one, and you're probably going to like this one. All right. So this is more the hot hand approach, right? So you want to find the guy that you can get for your contender second, maybe a little more, right? You might have to also give a third. In some cases, you might have to give also your 26th second, but that guy's going to be worth it because he may not have the shine of some of the big names, but he's hot right now, right? And the non-contender that has this guy looks at him as found money and is going to snatch up those picks where he can find them, right? So you already took my number one guy off this list, and that's Juwan Jennings, right? This is my number one target right now. I love this guy. He's not Ayuk, but as far as target share goes, he's going to be Ayuk for the rest of the year. If you watch that Niners game this last weekend, really the only thing they had in their passing game was Juwan Johnson, and it was get open on every third down. So, yeah, he's going to have volume for the rest of the year. And, I mean, I don't really expect Ayuk to just, like, hit the ground running and be 100% next year, game one. So he'll have some value next year as well. Other guys on this list that I really like, if you need a quarterback, Stafford. You can get Stafford for a second all day, and that guy's lighting it up with his weapons healthy. Cedric Tillman. So you might need a little more than just your contender second to get Cedric Tillman, depending on whether the guy believes in him or not. As you can see, I'm wearing the Go Big Orange shirt, right? I got a kid at Tennessee, so I've seen, believe it or not, Cedric Tillman play football, which he hadn't really done in 2 years. Man, I've been huge on this guy. I'm going to tell you that he doesn't have the top end speed of Nico Collins, but he's got the size, the toughness. You can see the route running chops starting to polish. And when they go deep, he's the guy that they like to go deep to. Jerry Jeudy's busted coverage play notwithstanding this last weekend, Cedric Tillman's the guy that they're going to look for deep in the deep passing game. And it's Jameis Winston. That guy, man, he's YOLOing the hell out of every minute he has in the National Football League, right? He is going to throw it up for Cedric Tillman, and I think you're going to reap the benefits. He and Juwan Johnson are probably my two favorites. Other guys in this range I also like are Eckler. He looks pretty quick, pretty spry these days, and he doesn't have to be the lead guy. So he comes in when they're not really expecting the running back to get the ball, and he kind of buries it down their throat in a good offense, right? Goddard is routinely undervalued, especially in tight end premium leagues. You can get Goddard for a second all day long, and all that guy does is produce when healthy, right? He's a points per game guy. And then also, I'm not sure this is probably going to take 2 seconds. This might be a little bit of premium for this category, but Njoku. Also the Winston factor. You saw Flacco light Njoku up last year. He was in this category last year as well. If you can get Njoku for a reasonable price, he's a hot player.
I will start. First of all, we did not plan this in any way. I literally found out like Monday, Sunday, that Jerry was going to be out for a while. And I immediately asked Jesse because he's a great content creator, always willing to help. But we did not plan this. I had Juwan Jennings on here too. Not only do I agree with your Brandon Ayuk take about not being 100% when the season starts next year.
Debo might not be there either, by the way.
Debo, I don't think they can afford to keep him.
Right.
And Juwan Jennings, he's 27. He's 27. If you can get him, you could be, and they're not going to be able to afford to be out splashing around in the wide receiver market. They're going to need to get stuff out of Ricky Pearsall. They're going to need to get more out of Juwan Jennings.
And he's a Shanny guy. Shanny just loves him. You can see it.
And he's going to continue to produce. My guy, and I've already talked about him at length on the show, so I won't beleaguer it. My guy, this all off season or into the season, and I think he's still somewhat cheap. I think people are sleeping on him, is Josh Downs. I've loved Josh Downs. You're in our Patreon group chat at patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. I've been hyping this guy all year since week 3 when he came back from the high ankle sprain. He missed weeks 1 and 2. Since he's been back, weeks 3 through 11, he is the wide receiver 8 on the season.
Damn.
And the Colts love him.
Yeah, they do.
They love him. I'll give you a sneaky one. I'll give you a sneaky stash. Are you ready for a sneaky stash?
Sure.
This is an Indy guy. This is from a guy who lives in Indy, and this is a sneaky stash. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Go get Adonai Mitchell. If you can find a dissatisfied Adonai Mitchell GM, maybe they used a second on him last year. Maybe they'll take a third for him this year. They don't see it. They think it's going to be Downs. They think it's going to be Pittman. Anthony Richardson can't throw the ball. I can tell you Reggie Wayne is the wide receivers coach here. I don't know if Reggie Wayne's in the Hall of Fame, but he should be. But Reggie Wayne, a very good wide receiver in his own respect. He absolutely adores Adonai Mitchell. And he keeps saying the best is coming for this kid. He's coming. I would not be surprised as a Colts fan if Michael Pittman was not plying his trade somewhere else in 2025. A lot of wide receiver needy teams out there, and I could easily see where the Colts think they can get this done with Mitchell and Downs, and Pierce is like that field stretching YOLO deep ball guy. Absolutely love your Juwan Jennings. That was not intentional. Tillman?
Yeah.
I mean, similar boat. You know, if Cleveland decide, unless they put a frame job on him that would make, 1960s police departments proud, unless they hang a frame job on him with another masseuse so they can get out of his guaranteed money in his contract, it's going to cost them something like $90 million. $90 million or something like that in dead cap. You think the Russell Wilson thing was bad for Denver? Guess what? Deshaun Watson would be even worse than that. And if you cut him, you're not going to be able to keep guys like Elijah Moore. I have no idea what the hell they were thinking, both trading for and then extending Jerry Jeudy. This is not a team, the Cleveland Browns, that do well. So I think you're onto something. I like looking at teams or guys on teams when they're cheap. They're on affordable. They're producing at a level above the contract they're playing on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cedric Tillman is starting to produce at a higher level than his rookie contract would dictate. Those are the guys you love. Cheap guys, 2 years left on their contract. I think that one's a good one. Eckler, I've always been an Eckler guy. Another class of that 2017 running back. You can't shake him. Aaron Jones is another one. Christian McCaffrey.
And he's cheap. If he's on a non-contender right now, they're dying to get rid of him.
Yes, it's the same conversation I had earlier. It's honest. Don't be a dickhead about it. It's honest conversation. Look, it is Thanksgiving. You have approximately 3 weeks to make a move. And it's kind of like how I used to meet women at the bar. Look, I know I'm not Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise, but I'm the only guy in here talking to you.
Oh my God.
That's how might not be the best looking sumbitch in here, but I'm the only sumbitch talking to you. And that's what I tell the Eckler owner. Listen, if someone was offering more for Eckler, he'd be on a different roster. Don't get cute. Take it. Take the pick, because in 3 weeks, you're not getting shit. It's just going to be, we're waiting for the next rookie, undrafted free agent, Isaac Gonzalez, whoever the hell. And that's going to be the guy who takes that job, and Austin Eckler is going to wind up bagging groceries.
A lot of running backs coming out this year.
Yeah, that's the narrative we sell every single rookie season. And then one more I'll throw out there, and then we're going to jump into our second break. But another one that I'll throw out there is Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney. Jesse, what do you think you'd have to pay for Darnell Mooney?
I think it's so if you're a contender, you have had to work some wizardry to have a projected high second, but I think that's his value, right? So maybe Ray Davis and a third.
But not a lot. Not a lot for. I mean, you're talking.
I like second round picks on fire all the time.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think you could probably get a third back. Like you get Darnell Mooney and a 26th third, because you got to, you got to, parse out that value of that pick for a second. And again, you're never getting this in the offseason. But dude, Darnell Mooney just continues. This past week was his first single-digit point game since week 7. He's been a guy who's been averaging right in 14 points a game. Nice little running back. And that's from week 3, because I had the Josh Downs stats pull up. If you give me just a second.
Yeah, absolutely. So my thoughts on Josh Downs, by the way, is I do think he's a little rich for this category. I think he's more of a late first.
Oh yeah. But while I agree with that, I think there's still people out there sleeping. I still think there are people out there sleeping. I don't know. I think what you pay will come down to whether or not Josh Downs is contributing to a winning roster, is the best way for me to state that. If he is having a positive contribution to a team right now, then you're not going to get him, first of all, because he's contributing.
Right.
Second of all, if he's on like a roster, because I'll tell you, that's been my favorite trade that I've made all year. My absolute favorite trade in a team that I'm chasing another championship. I've done very well in this league. I sent my Contenders 25 first, and I got Josh Downs and Brian Robinson.
Woof. Nah, you murdered that guy.
And yeah, I won't tell you the content creator I pulled that shenanigan on, but he was the team in dead last, and he's just thinking rebuild, and I'm like, I could see maybe giving up the running back, but if you're a rebuilder, Josh Downs is the kind of guy you'd want to hang on to, not move off of. What was he, year 2?
Right,
year 2.
Let me ask you this. So
sure,
I was going to bring this up anyway, but one of the other things you'll see happening is the Contenders trading off their hurt players. We think of like a Rashee Rice for Downs.
I would rather have Rice, and it's not by a lot, but I would rather have Rice.
But he's hurt and not producing your points. So if he's on the contender and you have Josh Downs as a non-contender, I feel like that's a nice target.
No, I 100% agree. Rashee Rice would, and we can get to him in a second, but let me get to this. Let me get to a little word. I don't have a fancy Podfather commercial, so I'm just going to do a blatant Memphis ad read. And I'm wearing my shirt, actually. If you're watching live on YouTube, you see my FastDraft shirt. FastDraft has now launched DFS, and it's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. and a live draft takes about 5 minutes. You'll get an alert when the draft fills up. You can go in and you can get the draft done. If you like DFS and you like the art of Jesse, you love drafting. What's the number one thing in our patron group chat?
More than anything.
As soon as like it's not even Valentine's Day, and people are like, "We drafting yet? When's the next patron league starting?" It's like, guys, we're still rolling over last year's leagues, but people love drafting, and that's the point of this. It's a DFS style contest. It's called Flex 6 Frenzy. It's on FastDraft. We just went live in Missouri. Great state of Missouri. Just went live with FastDraft. You can check it out there. There's a turbo mode. Ranking is just the whole 9 yards. So even if you decide not to play, you should check out the app. It's a FastDraft. It's a lot of fun. I've been on it. I've been on it in multiple states. You do need to check a state near you, but fuck it. Just download the thing anyway. and that way, when your state decides to legalize this, you'll be good to go. So check out our boys over at FastDraft and tell them Memphis and Jesse sent you.
I just bookmarked it, actually. I live in Maryland. It's all good.
There you go. So check out FastDraft. Check out the DFS contest. And if you have an itch to draft, you'll be drafting. And here's the thing. Best ball season will be here before you know it. And FastDraft will revolutionize best ball for you this offseason. That is FastDraft. It is in the Android and Google Play and iTunes stores. Check it out. All right, Jesse, let's get back to some more trade talk. We got about 20 minutes left before we got to get to man versus machine on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Give me some other guys that you have that you want to share with this audience.
All right, so we've talked about a lot about it from the contender side. So not everybody's contender, and not everybody listening to this show is a contender. So if you're a non-contender and you want to look to rebuild your team and to possibly kickstart that build with a little extra value, what you might want to do is go after a depressed value younger player, right? So you might want to look around the league and see who you believe in and who you were willing to pay a first plus for this time last year that might not be producing and might not have to pay for that right now. Number one on my list right here would be Jalen Waddle. All right. Now, I don't think the days of shoot them out, hit the back foot, throw it up, and there's open runners everywhere, Miami offense, I don't think those are really coming back. But I do think because of the two high safeties and the way defense is being played right now in the NFL, I don't think it's coming back soon. But I do think that they have a very intelligent head coach, even though he's a little, we'll call quirky, maybe a little weird, maybe a little quirky. But I do think he's pretty smart, and I think he's going to figure out a way at some point to use a weapon like him, right? And you also have to think about the age and the contract of Tyreek Hill, right? So once Tyreek's gone, you still have this young weapon in Jalen Waddle who most likely becomes the focal point of the offense. So at this point, I think he's depressed enough to where I don't really think you need to pay a first for Jalen Waddle, right? So take one of these, I don't know, Alvin Kamara, Debo type players that Memphis wants to get rid of so badly, and go get a young player like Jalen Waddle. Other players on this list I have are Zay Flowers. So I think there's a perception, and there always will be a perception surrounding Lamar that he can't support fantasy players. But if you look at Zay Flowers' production, far outweighs his value right now. I think I feel like he's worth probably, I would say 106, 107, plus you're going to have to sweeten it a little for me. But that's because I live in Baltimore and I love Zay Flowers and I see the talent. He's dripping with talent. I think a lot of players out there, I think will give up Zay Flowers for a Contenders first or a late first in value, right? Somebody that's producing points. Other players on this list, Jordan Addison, Sam Laporta has taken a huge hit. Memphis's boy AR is pennies on the dollar right now. Bryce Young, I think you can get him for a song, maybe a late second. Deontay Johnson, kind of a little bit older on this list, but something about paying a second, a late second, maybe a third for Deontay Johnson. I feel like it'll pay off next year and you can get more, or you can get a player you like better. I don't know. Something about that one I like, but that one's last on my list. What do you think about the young players?
It's important. It's as important, if not more important, for rebuilders to be active right now as much as it is for contenders. I think there seems to be this narrative around the fantasy playoffs and dynasty leagues that it's really just the contenders who are out there and are making moves. No, again, be realistic. This is the best time to purge all those older guys scoring points. Before I get to yours, I did have one for your previous segment, like that cheaper guy that you could probably get for a second or less.
Sure.
And he's a guy that I'm not super high on, but Quentin Johnston is having a solid season. It's not been great.
Yes.
He's missed a couple of games, but let me ask you a question. Quentin Johnston, how many touchdowns does he have on the season?
I'm going to guess 7.
6.
Okay.
6. He's played 10 games, not even. He's played 8 games and has 6 touchdowns. He's had 3 touchdowns in a row. Now he's probably had an equal number of drops, 3 games in a row. But he's a guy, he's 23 years old. He's in year 2 of his deal. His rookie season put such a stain on his value that he's a guy that I wanted to bring up before we talked about FastDraft that I didn't mention. Let me jump in. Zay Flowers.
Yeah,
I'm totally fine with it. I think Zay Flowers, I will pull up the stats I've been working with. I believe Zay Flowers is on pace. He is currently wide receiver 8. Zay Flowers is on pace to be the first wide receiver 1 created by Lamar Jackson as the quarterback.
Hollywood never did it?
Never did it.
Wow.
This is a Ryan McDowell stat. Ryan McDowell posted that this summer, and that is mind-blowing. But yeah, no, wide receivers have had pockets of success, and part of that could have been injury or speaking of guys who dropped the ball. Remember the one where Hollywood Brown, when he was in Baltimore, dropped 3 touchdowns in one game? It does happen. So I'm totally fine with that. Addison's fine. I think I'd rather have Khalil Shakir than Jordan Addison just at cost.
Yeah, I like Khalil Shakir, especially in PPR.
Fun story about Khalil Shakir. How many single-digit PPR games does he have this year? So he's played 10. He missed 1 game due to injury.
2.
So out of 1.
Okay.
He has been less than 10 PPR points exactly 1 time this year.
He set a record this year for most targets without an incompletion in a row.
For you older PPR players, when I heard this on a podcast today, I got the slightest of PPR chubbies, and it was someone said Khalil Shakir is starting to look like that offense's version of Julian Edelman or Wes Welker. Nipple so hard you could cut glass. You could literally cut glass with those things. So I do like Addison. Like I said, I think I'd rather have Shakir. Tight end, man, let me ask you this. Where would you have to get Laporta to make him a value? As a matter of fact, I'll let you answer that, and I'll throw in a little sidebar at you. Are you ready?
Sure.
Would you rather have Laporta or Kyle Pitts? And what are you paying for Sam Laporta right now?
First of all, I'd rather have Laporta, and I would pay my contender second for him all day. But not as a contender, right? So I would pay LA first for Laporta. I believe full on that value will rebound. I don't think that Detroit can play this way all the time, and they'll need him more than they have this year. I don't know. I just think that there's too many weapons, and they've just been mysteriously healthy. right? And he's
Well,
kind of
he missed the last game. He did not play.
He's kind of been the only one that hasn't been hurt. If I don't know, man, I really feel like in value, right? So let's come up with a player. Well, we have this whole list that I threw out there. All right. How about Ayuk?
Brandon Ayuk?
Yeah.
So you mentioned Rashee Rice earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so now, but coming into the season, would it have been fair of me to have said Rashee Rice and Brandon Ayuk were in a similar value range, like a similar pocket?
Sure.
Okay, they're both injured with knee injuries right now, likely to miss the rest of the season, right? Who would you rather have there?
The problem is
Rice.
I
think
Ayuk is Rice. The problem with Ayuk is he started the season cold. I think stayed there. Yeah, I think a lot of people expected that coming off a holdout. Rashee Rice started off as the focal point of the Chiefs' offense. And I mean,
Rashee Rice and Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah,
and a little side note,
they didn't find anyone to replace him. In the meantime, Nuke's not the answer. He might be the answer right now, but he's not the answer next year.
No, we're 100% in alignment, and Pacheco's getting ready to come back, and he is only in his third year. Next year will be a contract year for him, but you see very clearly this offense runs through Isaiah Pacheco, another guy I would totally be behind going to go get. They love this guy, and the offense has been okay with Kareem Hunt, but it's not been what it was. Going back to last year, because obviously 2-game sample this year. No, I agree. I would rather have Laporta. Laporta is, and coming down the stretch, they have some tough games. Week 17, the fantasy playoffs, that is the game where they play the 49ers. So you can anticipate it's Kittle versus Laporta. Can one outshine the other? I don't know. I'm really reaching for a narrative here, but their last three games of the season, home to the Bills, at the Bears, at the Niners. Those are games where they're going to need to be. Sam Laporta is going to be more involved. So if you can get him now would be the time. You said you had it. What do you have? I
think I have it. All right. So from a non-contender's point of view, I want to go out and get Laporta from a contender who's frustrated with him and not producing. What if I offer you Mike Evans coming back off of injury?
I got a better one for you.
His entire life.
I got a better one for you. What if you could offer that person a contender? Maybe you're not contending. That's where we're at right now, right? Mm-hmm. What if you can offer that person, maybe for some reason you have Cade Otton on the back end of, because you drafted him late a couple of years ago. He's collecting dust. He is literally your tight end 5. Can you move Cade Otton and something that you're going to put a big plus on there?
Yeah.
But do you have a veteran? Could you send Cade Otton, and Mike Evans may be the wrong choice, but can you send Cade Otton and Cooper Kupp to get Sam Laporta? Is that fair? Can you send Cade Otton and Alvin Kamara to get Sam Laporta right now?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Because you have a young guy, and I do believe that Cade Otton will continue to be a part of this offense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He has been from day one when he was drafted, by the way.
Yeah, and he had a couple of rough weeks, and now he wasn't injured like Josh Downs, but if you take out his first 2 weeks of the season, he's the tight end 2 on the entire season. So I think that would be some selling points in that conversation with that GM. Hey, I'm giving you a top 5 tight end. He may not be quote unquote Sam Laporta. He's outplaying Sam Laporta. Here's a veteran wide receiver, running back. Maybe it's a quarterback. Maybe it's a Matt Stafford. Maybe again, you're sending 2 for 1 because Laporta is currently creating a hole in that other GM's roster, right? There's a hole where he's not getting the points he needs. If you can fill that hole, if you can fill that hole and give them additional points for a flex spot or to backfill an injury or just in case, that might be just the enticement you need to get that kind of a deal done. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely fair. Yeah, you're giving them a replacement that's going to score them more points. Plus, you're upgrading another position, and they're giving up on their hopes and dreams of the future that Laporta is going to be this great player. And in return, you're giving up two good players for the potential of a great player. I love that for both sides.
Yeah, and this is where I get to put my baseball hat on. And if you're watching on YouTube, this LSU hat is tied to the baseball team, not the football team. Go Tigers. Use WAR, wins above replacement. You can do it with par, points above replacement in fantasy football. Hey, right now Cade Otton's giving you more points per game than Sam Laporta, and I'm willing to augment your – so let's just say hypothetically that you got a contender, his or her third running back is Rico Dowdle, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the point difference between Rico Dowdle and Alvin Kamara? You picking up 5, 6, 7 points a game with Alvin Kamara?
Right.
Okay. Currently, this is in non-premium, but in non-premium, Cade Otton is scoring about 3.5 more points a game than Sam Laporta. This trade for someone trying to win a championship, we just put 10 points a week in your lineup. I'm not giving you an old man in Cade Otton. I'm giving you a young man. He's, just a little bit older than Laporta. That's how you negotiate a trade. And I want to get back to filling a hole because Jesse came in this week and he filled the hole for Jerry.
That's what
and we're rooting for Jerry. This could be a big opportunity for him in his real world job. He is stepping in to fill a void created at his work, which created a void here with his podcast work. But luckily, he's got a great teammate named Jesse Scheenman, who happens to co-host a podcast on the Dynasty WarZone network. Jesse, remind these people of when they can find your show, YouTube version, podcast version, and anything else you'd want them to know about the Dynasty Front Office.
All right, Thursday nights, like I said, we usually go live around 10 p.m. Eastern. What you can hear that you didn't hear on this podcast is my co-hosts yelling at me because they're a lot smarter than I am and giving me the real names that should really be in these places. Memphis is a little too polite to do that to a guest, but the co-hosts keep me in line. And then, like I said, we come out wherever you get your podcasts on the Dynasty WarZone network, usually on Saturdays, with a little nudging for Memphis to hit that publish button.
Yeah, my next move is you can give a man a fish, or you can teach a man to fish. I got to teach Jesse how to upload his own podcast because I know you do it.
I'll absolutely do that.
Just like you jumped in today and you helped us out with the show. No, the Dynasty Front Office is a great show. There's not a lot of new Dynasty content that drops on Saturdays. Just unless that content creator is sitting on it and they don't drop it until Saturday. But most people, they don't want to record on Friday. They don't record on Saturday because they're trying to enjoy football or family or both. These guys, that's why I launch it on Saturday. It's a very uncongested market. So on Saturday, if you're out raking the leaves, you're out, putting up Christmas lights, any of those fun things, be a great listen to the Dynasty Front Office, found on the Dynasty WarZone YouTube and podcast network. You can check out our Patreon, which Jesse is a big supporter of, over at patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. He's in the chat, always answering questions, asking questions, because he's a Dynasty gamer just like us. Check that out, patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. And Jesse, you're the man. And by the way, being mean to you will come, much like your co-host. It will come. It just won't come on the first night. You're filling in for Jerry. But on behalf of Jesse, I am Memphis. You can follow me at Jerry. That's the normal guy. You can follow me at DWZ Memphis. You can follow Jesse at Dynasty War Games. They've rebranded, but the Twitter handle stays at Dynasty WarGames. So check that out. Check these guys out. Follow them on Thursdays. They may answer a trade question for you. I'll be back next week with here's the teaser. A very special co-host filling in for Jerry. He's been in the podcast industry longer than me, and he's retiring in January. If you know who it is, tune in. If you don't, tune in next week, and we'll have another guest host, and we'll talk to you then. Have a great weekend, guys. Good luck.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.